Today we're joined with Jason Richards. He's senior partner here at Cicero, and we're going to talk a little bit about support transformation, change management, topics that Jason really is an expert on. He's got a ton of experience in this field across a lot of different industries, and so really excited to have Jason chatting with us. And so let's just start. Jason, talk a little bit about your background and what you do at Cicero, and let's start there.
Yeah, so I've been with Cicero a little over a decade now. Actually, almost 15 years of my career. Was here for 3 years, started as an analyst, left for 5, did some startups, did business school, and have been back for 11 years, focusing on the very topics that you talked about. So change management, transformation, and global support, which I think we're talking about today. My specialty really falls in when you think about some of the largest global support companies in the world. Microsoft, Apple, Meta, AT&T, Verizon, that have to maintain this global presence. How do you maintain that consistent voice that a customer wants to see? And how do you do it effectively, knowing that in order to do that, it involves people? People is a subject I'm passionate about. It's why I do what I do. It's why I wake up in the morning. And to be able to do it at that scale, at a global level, it's been super rewarding.
As we start this conversation, let's talk a little bit about defining global support transformation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
How do we serve customers, and how do we serve them efficiently at a global level? I think in today, the demands of a customer are always increasing. And when you think about transformation, it's thinking truly about how the company is doing business today and how they're servicing their company today, and they want to go in an entirely different direction. So it's going to require a transformation. Maybe it's through acquisition. More and more we're finding that companies are acquiring and growing in this market, and you might acquire a company that does business completely different than how you do it. How do we train and onboard that company to meet the demands and expectations and brand of that company? Or maybe it's the opposite way. Maybe the smaller company has this great technology and this great way to go to market, and how do we take this much larger company that doesn't transform as fast and integrate some of the best aspects of the smaller company to achieve those results, which overall benefit the customer?
Well, so do you find that a lot of companies at this scale have challenges with really pinpointing the inconsistency with that voice? What are some common things that you find with these companies that they know they have a problem, but then how do you go about incorporating a better understanding of, listen, you don't have consistency here.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. One of the great things about today is the voice of the customer is becoming more and more transparent. It used to be a call or a phone call. Now it's a review as fast as you want. So how do you align the vision of your company, the strategy, this instant feedback that we know what the customer wants, but then align it with the talent of our people? When those three are not singing in perfect harmony, we know something's off. Whether your talent is being under leveraged, or you don't have enough talent, or that voice of the customer, you're starting to see it spike, or you're seeing those reviews or that feedback come in a lot faster on a particular subject, and it's not matching the reputation and brand that you've put out into the market, the community starts to define which direction you should go. They're not silent anymore. They say, this is the standard we want, this is how we want to be served. And the hope is that companies are now fast enough and can pivot enough to meet those demands. But the companies that really need it, that are achieving this global scale, they have a lot of moving parts. It's like turning a really big ship. So this is where the transformation efforts start to come aboard. How do you get all of those resources, all of that strategy, all of those tools working in harmony so you can turn fast enough to meet the demands of this customer that has these huge expectations?
So on that note, how does Cicero approach transformation? Companies identified this issue. They come to Cicero, they say, hey, we know we've got this problem here, and we identify, yep, it's a transformation problem. What makes us unique in that regard of how we approach transformation?
Yeah, I think we really look at it, the second a company brings it to it is our problem. Oftentimes they believe they know what the problem is. We can see the symptoms. At Cicero, we really want to dive in and see kind of the core diagnostics of what's going on. We're going to triangulate. We're going to use that voice of the customer. We're going to use a lot of third-party data to understand what's some of the industry best practices. What should we be doing in this particular problem? And then we know that every company is unique, their culture is unique, and how do you maintain that unique feel and culture of the company while at the same time amplifying and using the best practices of the industry while using your own people to pull it off.
Well, so it sounds like you're kind of going through a process at that point of redesigning a journey, a customer journey. Can you talk a little bit about that process redesign?
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about these global companies, oftentimes the company grows at a super fast rate. When we first interact with a company, they might be at a particular size with a certain number of employees. But after time, they start to get the effects and they start to scale. And their operations, their processes, a lot of that doesn't match up to the scale that they're trying to achieve. So one of the core things we try to make and try to implement is to come in, quickly look at the organization, see what's working and not working, and then work hand in hand with the leadership team, with the managers, with the frontline people to say, what do we need to change in the right order to start hitting these particular outcomes that we want? I think some of the key aspects is oftentimes we have the right people, but they might be in the wrong spots in the organization. Or they're in the right spot, but the right message isn't getting them to them. And so getting them, kind of singing as one symphony and getting all the arrows kind of pointed at the big arrow, always a challenge of some of these really, really large companies. And the quicker, faster you can do it, the more you can achieve the results that you're hoping to achieve with the project.
Talk a little bit about maybe some of the themes that you've seen with companies that do support well. I know that we've done a number of engagements to help improve that and get to an A+ level of support. Can you talk about some companies that have done support really well?
There are some gold standards out there of companies that do this. They know who they are, they know what their voice is, they know the reputation they want to hold, and they know the standard they want to achieve. So regardless of where this customer calls in, phones in, messages in from across the world, it's a unique, customized experience at a localized level. It matches their language. There's cultural sensitivity, but it matches the reputation and brand of that company. And we do that through similar processes, through similar training, through similar level of talent. All of that is consistent at a global level. But in order to do that, you have to get really down to the core, down to the foundations of those fundamentals in an organization that oftentimes when we're going fast, we start to miss, and we got to redefine them and reestablish them and make sure it's also transferring across some of those cultural boundaries to ensure that we're matching the needs of the market.
We're talking about a lot of ways that companies can evolve. And in this particular thing we've chatted at the top is support. And I think that in order to effectively shift support, leadership really needs to be aware that there's a problem in their customer experience, what their customers are feeding back to them. And so often you then run into situations where there actually has to be change through management and going through a change management process. Can you talk a little bit about that step at the top, that what change management looks like for us at Cicero and how we've helped clients with change management?
Yeah, your first question you had was a lot around leadership and transformation. I think when we call this global support transformation, it's because the company is in a current state and they want to go to a different state. It's a major cultural shift. And in order to do that, that starts at the leadership level. And once that's defined, we work hand in hand with each of the team to overall align. When you think of change management, it's such a buzzword today. Everyone talks about change management. But what it really is saying, I understand where you're at in this process, and I understand what it's going to take to actually get there. And we have the tools, the resourcing, the capability, and the training to help get you through that gauntlet of change. And we're going to do it as fast and as quick as possible, knowing there are individual needs that we have to address along the way. It's not something we can just steamroll and have this come out the other side and everything's great and dandy.
Jason, what are some of the results that we've seen at the end of a support transformation engagement?
I think one of the great parts about a transformation project is it starts with the customer. What do they want? How do they want to be served? And how can the organization best meet those needs? And it ends with the customer, because the organization is actually able to come full circle and meet those needs. Your response times are quicker. The answers to the questions that you want are more accurate. You don't have to search as far. Solutions are happening. Products are starting to become better. the organization moves much, much quicker. When those things start to come, it has a ripple effect on the employees themselves. If they're coming to the job and they have the answers to the problems to solve and they can help people, it becomes contagious. And companies, just like teams, love to win. And I think as they start to gain this traction, you start to see this infectious optimism of we're doing it, we're achieving results, and it's not only reciprocated by the customer, but also the employees themselves.
Support transformation is probably one element of transformation. There's a lot that can be transformed in an organization. Can you talk a little bit about what else, other than support transformation, successful companies look at?
Yeah. It's interesting you kind of talk about these two in tandem. Oftentimes we start with the company in one division. We talk about global support. But what we find is when we start to incorporate these change management aspects into an organization, that there's this chain kind of ripple effect that starts to happen. And as one organization starts to excel and find that traction, we find ourselves going across the entire organization and doing similar things. Oftentimes, there's a project management group that we work with. Cicero is more known for coming in and setting up a true transformation office. And not only managing those project aspects of the project, but truly the people components that make these successful. I think one of the things that sets us apart is that we truly do go shoulder to shoulder, that we're going to be there side by side with their people, not just at the start, not just at the end of the project, but working day to day with them on their job, helping them develop and gain these capabilities it needs to be this cutting edge organization that it requires in the global economy we have today.
We spent just a high level overview talking about support transformation, and I'm sure that there's so many specifics that really, when we decide to deep dive, that we're going to deep dive it and have some really interesting takeaways. And there was a lot to really understand in this conversation. So thanks for chatting. Thanks for discussing this. I think that there are so many different pieces of support transformation that companies can learn from and learn from folks like yourself. And so
I love it.
thanks for joining today.
Thank you.